Some mysteries of the past seemed unsolvable until now. In some cases, experts required technology that had not yet been invented. In others, researchers had to locate hidden sites in the most remote parts of the world. But these revelations have been worth the wait. After being perplexed for centuries, we have answers to these 30 riddles. And they are forever changing the way we understand the origins of humanity. Historical mysteries that have finally been solved. Historical mysteries that have finally been solved. A 160-kilogram stone head was found in a remote area of southern England, baffling locals and scientists for 200 years. The almost featureless stone head that turned up in the village of Bosham, outside Chichester, was twice the size of a normal human head. Many scientists tried in vain to discover the identity of the model. Two Bournemouth University professors, Miles Russell Senior Lecturer in Prehistoric and Roman Archaeology, and Harry Manley, from the School of Applied Sciences, scanned the head with a 3D laser. Their scan allowed the men to finally identify the head. It belonged to a larger statue of the Roman Emperor Trajan that guarded an ancient port. The stone heads on Easter Island have long been among the most famous archaeological monuments in the world. Carved by the Rapa Nui people, the figures originated between 1100 and 1500 CE. These famous monoliths have a surprising secret that was recently discovered. A team of modern researchers from Easter Island explored the heads and discovered that they were on top of larger figures that also had bodies. Over time, dirt and rocks slowly buried the bodies until only the heads were visible. Since they were excavated, the monoliths measure about 9 meters high. In the Chilean Atacama Desert, there is a huge cache of dead whales. These prehistoric whale carcasses stumped researchers for decades until they finally found a cause for their grave: a massive algae growth event. About 20,000 years ago, these seemingly harmless organisms wreaked havoc. The algal blooms absorbed too much oxygen, suffocating the whales. So how did they end up in a dry desert? Its location, which was 40 meters above sea level, was caused by the friction of the Nazca, Antarctic and South American plates. The remains of whales accompanied the geological tour. The Antikythera mechanism was discovered in a rotting Greek ship by divers in the early 20th century. Historians were confused about the device. They thought it was some kind of navigation machine, but were baffled by how complicated the mechanism was, with its dozens of gears and strange inscriptions. It turned out that the Greeks used this innovative technology to measure and predict the trajectories of celestial bodies. In 2021, scientists created a complete digital image of the Antikythera mechanism, helping them better understand the complexities of the device. Among the moving parts of the machine were 7 hands for 7 celestial objects: the Sun and Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn. In 524 BCC, King Cambyses II of Persia sent an army of 50,000 Theban soldiers across the desert to fight Ethiopia. The king was angry because the priests at the Siwa oasis refused to recognize his royal claim to Egypt. However, his army never reached the oasis temple. The Thebans disappeared after camping in another oasis, El Karga. A recently recovered document showed that they set out for their final destination, but were swallowed by a massive sandstorm. A strong and deadly south wind arose, bringing with it great columns of swirling sand, which completely covered the troops and caused them to disappear completely, wrote the ancient Greek historian Herodotus. After King Richard III died in battle, his corpse was publicly displayed in Leicester, England, as proof that he was in fact dead. He was awake for 3 days until he was unceremoniously buried in a dirt pit near a nearby church. Over the years, various religious groups destroyed each other's worship centers to demonstrate their dominance. In the confusion, Richard's burial site was lost. A rumor spread that a crowd threw the dead king into the river. Instead of accepting common history, the University of Leicester searched for the lost king and found him beneath a modern site. A DNA test confirmed that Richard III was buried under Leicester Cathedral. If you are visiting Death Valley, you can run across rocks that slowly slide across the sand. Don't worry. You're not experiencing heat exhaustion. These geological features really glide over the desert, although the rocks are by no means light. How do these rocks travel on their own? Although the rock phenomenon seems magical, especially since no one sees it move in person, there is a scientific reason for the rock's movements. The boulders, better known as shipping stones, sometimes become covered in ice when temperatures plummet at night. These ice-covered rocks are then pushed by strong gusts of wind across the racetrack playa. Within the Osceola River near Tallahassee, Florida, there is an eerie black sinkhole that divers were too terrified to explore. Finally, Florida State University professor Jesse Halligan decided to conduct research on the natural feature, no matter how creepy it was. The expedition was a great success. Researchers discovered huge mastodon tusks hidden in the dark sinkhole. The tusks were marked with grooves from the first tools made by humans. This meant that ancient people lived in the area for much longer than scientists believed. They had lived near the river almost 14,500 years ago. The Abydos helicopter frieze at the Temple of Seti convinced conspiracy theorists that the Egyptians carved an image of an ancient helicopter into the temple wall. There was also an ominous phrase next to the carving: "He who repels the 9 enemies of Egypt." What does this all mean? The images resemble modern technology, but this was not by the carver's design. When a new pharaoh took control of Egypt, he often ordered the images updated to reflect his reign. Over time, the images faded, further distorting the carvings into new, unwanted images. Around 1,500 years ago, the ancient Nazca people of South America mysteriously disappeared. They lived in the coastal valleys of southern Peru and left artworks on land, known as the Nazca Lines, as their only legacy. Scientists believed that a change in weather patterns, due to El Niño climate changes, was the cause of the demise of civilization. But it wasn't that simple. When Nazca farmers cleared massive patches of vegetation for agricultural use, they inadvertently created an ecological imbalance. Natural plants, such as the huarango tree, kept the soil healthy and fertilized. Without these trees, El Niño caused a nearby river to flood Nazcan's fields, ruining crops. The community collapsed. But what about the famous Nazca Lines? These large geoglyphs in the Nazca Desert remain a mystery. It is not inconceivable that the Nazca people are capable of creating them. Nobody understands why. Alien conspiracy theories abound. It is possible that they thought of it as an offering to the gods. While we're waiting for experts to determine for sure, archaeological developments over the past year are giving us answers about other cryptic ancient mysteries. With its large blocks of rock arranged in 2 circles in the southern English countryside, Stonehenge is Britain's best-known archaeological site. Built between 3000 and 1520 BC, it has been widely studied in the modern era. You might think we already know everything there is to learn about the ancient monument. But that's where you'd be quite wrong. Surprising new evidence in 2021 reveals a new chapter in the story of Stonehenge. Researchers believe the inner circle of stones was erected 280 kilometers from its current location on Wiltshire's Salisbury Plain. It is possible that the stones were first raised in Wales, near where they were quarried. And they had been there for 400 years before being moved to Salisbury 3,000 years ago. Archaeologists announced an extraordinary find in Germany in 2021. It is a piece of knuckle bone, probably from a deer, which was discovered in Unicorn Cave in Germany's Harz Mountains. The bone has been carved, with regular lines forming chevrons. However, this is not the job of Homo sapiens. It was a member of another species that marked patterns on this bone fragment. The artist was a Neanderthal, breaking the stereotype that they were creatures of inferior intellect. Radiocarbon dating places the age of this bone fragment at 51,000 years ago. Our direct ancestors did not arrive in this part of Europe until 1,000 years later. Speaking to National Geographic, one of the researchers, Thomas Terberger, said, "It is the beginning of culture, of abstract thought, the birth of art." A team of archaeologists working in the Bismoun Cave in southwestern Morocco made a groundbreaking discovery in 2021. They found a collection of 33 shells from 2 species of sea snails. Uranium serial dating showed that the layers are up to 150,000 years old. But they are not just old shells, but have been turned into something else by human hands. These shells have been made into beads and may be the oldest jewelry in the world. In a news release from the University of Arizona, one of the researchers, Professor Stephen L. Kuhn, said, "The beads were probably part of the way people express their identity with clothing." He added that marks on the shells showed they could have been mounted on ropes or clothing. That the Vikings arrived in Newfoundland many centuries ago is not news. But the discoveries announced in 2021 push back the known date when the Norsemen first arrived in North America by a considerable margin. And scientists were able to arrive at an astonishingly precise date by using new techniques to interpret the evidence provided by ancient tree earrings. Researchers are confident that Vikings who had sailed across the North Atlantic, probably from Greenland, were at Lanceau Meadows in Newfoundland in 1021. They made more than a quick visit. The brave sailors stopped at Lanceau Meadows and cut down trees there, both juniper and spruce. It is those tree trunks that have allowed researchers to arrive at this incredibly precise dating. Here's something we might like. The discovery of an ancient Egyptian brewery. It is so old that it may be the oldest in the world. A team discovered the brewery in a royal cemetery, and it dates back about 5,000 years. Located in the desert south of Cairo, it was not a backyard liquor-making operation. The brewery was equipped with 40 ceramic vessels and would have been capable of producing 5,900 gallons of beer. It seems that the beer may have had a special purpose. In a statement from Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, Matthew Adams of New York University explained, "It may have been built at this location to supply the royal rituals that took place in the funerary facilities of the Egyptian kings." An astonishing series of discoveries spanning 30 years was announced in 2021. One man, who did not want to be named, found 131 Anglo-Saxon gold coins with his metal detector. The discoveries occurred in what was once the Kingdom of East Anglia, southern England. The undisclosed location is not far from Sutton Hoo, the archaeological site featured in the film The Dig. The find includes Frankish coins from almost 1,500 years ago, as well as Roman coins and jewelry items, all made of gold. Quoted on the ArtNet website, Gareth William of the British Museum said, "This is a very important find. It is the largest hoard of coins from the period known to date." He added that the discovery would help transform our understanding of the early economy of Anglo-Saxon England. Working in the harsh conditions of South Africa's Kalahari Desert, archaeologists made an exceptional find. Their discovery occurred in Wonderwork, which translates as Miracle Cave, where they found evidence of early human occupation. And by first, we mean an astonishingly long time. In a statement from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Professor Ron Shear explained the importance of the new study. Shear said, "We can now say with confidence that our human ancestors made simple Oldowan stone tools inside Wonderwork Cave 1.8 million years ago." He explained that human-made Oldowan-type stone tools had been found that were up to 2.6 million years old. This was the first time such artifacts were found in a shelter. Somewhere you could call home. It seems that the ancient Egyptians cared a lot about felines. They gave the animals elaborate burials. Researchers were digging in the dunes near the city of Berenice in Egypt's Red Sea when they came across a pet cemetery. It dates back almost 2,000 years to the 1st century AD. And included about 600 tombs, the vast majority with cats. There were also some dogs and macaque monkeys. The animals were not thrown into holes. As if asleep, some were decorated with necklaces made of glass, shell or stone beads. The archaeozoologist Marta Osipinska highlighted that she cared for the animals in life in the magazine World Archaeology. "We have individuals that have imitated mobility. They had to be fed to survive, sometimes with special foods in the case of almost toothless animals." The sprawling 161-hectare site of the magnificent Angkor Wat in Cambodia has been the subject of study. New research in 2021 has yielded some findings about this beautiful city, built in the 12th century. The latest discovery comes from extensive high-tech scanning using aircraft equipped with sophisticated mapping tools, said a University of British Columbia study published in the journal Science Advances. For the first time, archaeologists have been able to provide estimates of the population of Angkor Wat. It appears that the city may have been home to 900,000 people in the 13th century. That may not sound too impressive given the megacities of today. But it is worth remembering that around 1300, London, then and now Britain's largest city, had a population of only about 80,000. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.